Right, welcome back to Mozzy Sales, and you're very lucky to have the three of us squeezed into the new Mozzy Sales studio.
Whoa.
I'll go so far as to call it studio.
Yeah, it's quite snazzy.
Obviously hit the big time.
Yeah, I've earned so much money that I've built a shed at the end of the garden. My expansion of the YouTube empire aside, we are all gathered again because we're actually getting racing in this America's Cup cycle, so it felt a fitting time to bring you guys back in. Next month we are having racing in the One Design AC40s in Vilanova, just along the coast from Barcelona, with all the America's Cup teams, and it is I'm not sure if they're calling it a World Series or if it's just a preliminary regatta, but it's effectively what the World Series were in the previous Cups. So exciting times. We're basically a year into the sailing of this Cup and we're actually getting racing. But we'll start with the big elephant in the room question. How relevant do you think this is to the Cup? We're getting hyped about it, but how relevant is it actually?
I think it's pretty much totally irrelevant, but it's going to be a really good show. And I think it'd be good to just see some sailing rather than just seeing videos of boats sailing around by themselves.
Yeah, for the Cup teams themselves, are they going to learn much? Don't know, but 6 years ago, the idea of these falling monohulls even working was crazy, and now we're going to have some fleet racing. So actually, that's quite exciting.
Yeah, it feels like it's as much a big step for the boats and the audience and just getting accustomed to what this looks like, because the last Cup, obviously it was a new class, but we saw very little racing ahead of it because of COVID. The World Series events then were cancelled. So actually just getting like a little bit under the belt and a little bit of a form, guide going, who's who, what the manoeuvres are, what the set plays are, I think would be good. Plus, there was a lot of naysayers about the class to begin with, the AC75. That was successful in the last Cup and it spawned this AC40 kind of miniature class, which has now come out. But there's still quite a lot of people out there who have their doubts about the boats, and these events will be very interesting to see if they can cope with fleet racing.
I think the other thing is, like, aside from the racing, if the America's Cup wants to be this product that gets views and gets people excited about it, obviously all the Mozzy Sales loyal viewers know quite a lot about who's in the various teams and who the sailors are. There'll be a much wider audience who don't really know anything about the Cup, and you need to get those people to Barcelona at this time of year and get them to have a really amazing time and go, oh, that was good. Let's make sure we're all booking our tickets to go and watch the real thing in a year's time.
It's definitely a commercial exercise. It's an on-the-water test as much as it is on the water. Does the Recon system work in a racing format? Have they got their showpiece, as it were, and is the production good enough? Because at times in the last Cup, sometimes the production, commentary, could it have been better? Yeah, probably. So it's all part of that build-up program.
We always talked about this with things like football, where you turn on and you know the product you're going to get. Like, you watch from which you always watch from the same side of the pitch.
Yeah.
Is it the left? Is it the right? I don't know. But you always watch from the same side. Like, it's a very known product. And it'd be really interesting to see if we get some different camera angles, if they have worked out ways of like really showing the action at certain points in the race. So all of that stuff is...
And have they learnt from everything else that's going on in the sailing world with...
Exactly. And they've kind of got a rival product as well, haven't they? And like, before, America's Cup was the only thing in sailing, and now there is this rival Sail GP, and they'll want to be going head to head with that and trying to put on a really good show.
Yeah, I think this is, as much as we'll get into what it means for the teams or doesn't mean for the teams in a bit, but I think actually like the people most under scrutiny here are the organisers, the event team, the media surrounding it, getting their product defined, getting their audience familiar with their product and getting that in a neat package under the microscope of having Sail GP, who, still there's certain parts of that which are still rusty, but it's pretty slick on the whole. It's definitely improved. going into format and what the product looks like. So just to clear up for the viewers, obviously America's Cup match racing 1v1. The format for this will be fleet races, so all 6 teams, including the French team, they've just picked up their boat. Fleet racing, I think, got 2 days or 2.5 days of round robins, effectively, then a final between the top 2. What do you think of that format? Does that format scream America's Cup to you? You're happy with it? Is it good to have all the teams?
I mean, they always did do fleet. Well, I mean, did they always do fleet racing? Yeah, even in the 12-metre days, they would have a 12-metre World Championships just before the Louis Vuitton Cup. So they're pictures from Perth of them racing like 13, 12 metres around the course together. Then the IACC boats in Valencia, they had fleet racing acts, which were all quite cool. I think the problem there was it was all really before the days of live streaming. So it's not like it's a new thing for the Cup to have fleet racing rounds in it and have that as part of the format. But yeah, they have to stay true to that match racing final element of it.
Well, I think they've taken the SailGP format effectively, and instead of having 3 boats in the final, they've got a true match race final.
Yeah, but that existed before SailGP.
But yeah, but still, like,
Yeah.
as a show, as a product that has been used in a similar kind of racing.
But it's been used like even
format.
Think about like Sydney. The Soling was like a fleet racing series, and then you went into quarters match racing. So the whole fleet racing start, match racing, final rounds is not. It's not like it's a new thing.
No, it's not a new thing.
But I mean, do we think that's better than for this event? Considering we think it's got no relevance to the America's Cup, would we prefer to see that, or would we rather see just full fleet racing, or a more of a some fleet racing than a knockout series? Like,
My feeling, I get this product as a standalone product is a formula that's been used before. It's being used pretty well with SailGP at the moment. The other reason why this format is probably attractive is it gets all the boats in front of the camera all of the time. The flip side of that is only get 1/6 of the actual camera shots, and probably less if you're at the back. But the reason I would like to see more match racing isn't because of these standalone events, but I think it's about building a little bit of a story heading into America's Cup. You know, a few more grudge matches depending on, you know, who pulled what manoeuvres on who, and then having that knowledge when we come to the Cup, you know, scores to settle, that kind of stuff. I would like if there was a bit more match racing to build that. But I get for just a one-off event, like the fleet racing spectacle is pretty cool as well.
I mean, it's really interesting. So before SailGP existed as a thing, everyone always said, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if you just..." Everyone would be like, "Oh, it doesn't matter what boats you have for the Cup. You could just have the TP52s racing up a stadium course, and it'd be really exciting." But then when you watch SailGP, how often do you miss the critical cross because they just weren't filming it?
Yeah, that's true.
And actually, when you've got a match race, at least you film the right thing because there's only one thing to film.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe watching on the ground, it'll be quite cool. When we're there watching it, it might be quite cool watching the fleet race. But
over a weekend format, actually, how tricky would it be to do a full match racing series, and you get enough races in that actually the end result end up being quite tough from a race
yeah, because actually,
perspective.
what do you need? You need like how many teams are there? 6.
6 teams, so
you probably need 2 round robins and then a knock, and then semis and a final. It actually is quite a lot of racing.
Quite a lot of races to get in there for a weekend.
Because it's probably a venue that's going to be sea breeze driven, so it's not like they can just start at 10 in the morning and race till 6 at night. They've got this window for the TV, so...
Yeah. I mean, what I would have done is 2 courses, a camera course and a B course, just with like chase boats filming for like bits of footage afterwards. I would have the cameras on one course all the time, 2 racing, and yeah, flip through as much as possible. Yeah, I don't decide what's what, but that's what I think would have worked in my ideal world. So that's my axe to grind, I think, about it. There's not more match racing, but I you know, like I said already, I get why they've done it, and we'll be there to see what it's like. Tom, unfortunately, won't.
I can't make it. But
you can't make it. But so one thing to say about this is Barcelona is an amazing city. Vilanova just along the coast, so it's you can do both, go and see the bases and go to watch the racing in Vilanova, which is what we're going to be doing, and we'd have never imagined doing that. First of all, it was in New Zealand, but even if it was in the EU and it was like not as attractive a place, we probably wouldn't be going either.
It's a cool venue, isn't it? They're essentially low-cost airlines flying into Barcelona from every country in Europe. So I think you'll have loads of sailing fans from Europe certainly travelling there. International connections, so maybe you get Americans arriving. I mean, it's a long way from New Zealand to come and watch 3 days of sailing in 40s, but they are quite fanatical about their sailing, so you never know.
It would be good to get a view of what the support is like on the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, you were saying this is kind of a separate point sailing, but you're saying just offline that, you know, your wife would consider a trip out there. I mean, she is a sailor and a bit of a sailing fan herself, but equally mostly just because it's like Barcelona and it's an epic city to go to for, like, you know, you can go with the family and stuff. So it does have that added thing, whereas I could never have dreamt of taking the family to New Zealand. If it was like in Cork, I guess Cork was the other option, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And even there, like you could do a quick
What would you
drop
do
into it, but then it's
Cork, great place, but not as exciting as Barcelona.
yeah. Unless the family are really into like a crazy Guinness bender, then there's maybe less to do. We'll get loads of people in the comments now like, Cork's amazing. What are you on
Cork
about?
is amazing.
It's great.
Yeah.
I mean, we would love Cork, but your wives would not like Cork as much, I don't think. Not with the way you'll be behaving.
It's not as an easier sell.
No.
And also, because of that, people will be able to book onto the full Mozzy sales experience for the actual cup, as yet unreleased.
Yeah, it's easier to get a boat to Cork than it is to Barcelona. But if you know of any good hires in Barcelona, let us know.
Yeah, 30 metres plus, ideally.
Right, what more is there to say about the format? Oh, yeah, that's the other thing about the format. Upwind starts, I believe. So that is a differentiator from SailGP at least. Are you happy to see Upwind starts return?
I think it's quite interesting. I think it will really hone in those starting skills with these boats. You might not get the crazy action you do at that first mark that you do in SailGP with a reaching start. But actually, I think that's sailing, and Upwind starts is pretty normal. So I think it'd be
cool because I think with the reaching start, the start itself is pretty exciting, and then they have the drag race to Mark 1. I don't know if they call it a drag race, but
no, they do. Stephen Morrison
they should call it a drag race. Yeah.
These boats are reaching 100 kilometres an hour.
Yeah, once they're on the drag race to Mark 1, and then they bear away around Mark 1, and then the boat who went round first sails off and wins normally. Yeah. Whereas I think with this, you're going to have 6 boats. You're going to have 4 boats starting on starboard, 2 boats starting on port, 4 boats all hitting the boundary. There are going to be rule scenarios like a minute into the race. You're going to have like crazy rule scenarios happening, and
port tack starters.
But they see that separation
It'll
that
be
you get from the reaching start's not going to happen. So it's going to be action.
There'll be action from the go, and it won't be like whoever gets. It's probably not going to be whoever gets the boundary first wins. It's going to be whoever gets to the correct boundary for the shift, and then negotiates the rule scenarios at the boundary best, will put themselves in a good place. But
you could argue that it makes the starting even more important.
I think if you can get to the boundary and you can get your tack onto port and you're in a clear lane on port, then you'll be really strong.
Yeah.
Do we think it's going to be dangerous though?
Hopefully.
Classic roll. The thing is, these guys, it's not like they're fresh in it. They haven't sailed these boats for a while, and some of them have been doing 2-boat tuning. I think they're going to be pretty cautious.
But I think equally, the teams that have got 2 AC40s, or essentially 2 AC40s, they'll know exactly like how much gauge you need on someone to get a tack and across, how much clip, like what you need to get a tack and a duck. So they'll be just boat on boat things like that. They should be pretty fine tuned at, and we've seen loads of footage of them doing 2 boats starting. Yeah. So I think the whole time on distance thing to the start line, they should be quite good.
And they did have some practice racing. I'll put up some footage of that. One of the interesting things from those reports, we'll get into the who won those practice races later. But one of the interesting things I thought from those reports is all the teams agreed not to push the starts, not to engage too much, just to pick their lane and get the start on the way, which is fine for testing the how everything works. But I guess one of the big questions is it safe? And by doing that, they're not going to know if it's safe until they're under the world view. So there is a little bit of risk there.
Yeah.
I think it's safe. They're not going to crash into each other. They know what they're doing. They know the repercussions of crashing could be pretty severe. They'll just crash down rather than crash into each other.
Yeah. I don't know whether to say this. I'm not sure if I'll leave it in the edit or not. But it is Bart's Bash weekend. So they probably, a lot of them, it's either Bart's Bash weekend or a few days afterwards or a week after. Yeah. So they might have that in the backs of their minds when they're taking to the course. And I think there is, I don't know if I leave this in or not, I think there is a little bit of me that's thinking this is pretty bold, testing fleet racing in these foilers under the cameras without letting them have at it a little bit before and letting the sailors like try it in training and then see if they think it's dangerous or not. I would have, those practice races basically, I think I would have had them be a little bit more
Seems funny
high
that
risk
they were
than
kind of depressurized, as it were.
And I'm not
or-
sure if that's from a strategy point of view. So maybe some of them are like, we don't want to give away our strategies, we don't want to damage our boats, let's not do it. And I guess that from a team principal point of view, that makes sense. But from the sailor's point of view, I'd be like, I want to know what it's like with 6 boats on the start line, under pressure, everyone trying to win. Is it going to be scary? Do I feel safe?
Just in the edit here, and I thought it's worth pointing out, obviously, Bart Simpson, he tragically lost his life preparing for the 35th America's Cup. It wasn't a racing incident, so maybe not directly relevant, but obviously sailor safety should always be one of the top priorities. Since recording that, I've learnt that they're doing extra practice racing ahead of Vilanova, so maybe that will be a bit more confrontational and give the teams a little bit of time to get their eye in with some full competitive fleet racing in these boats ahead of the main event.
Equally, if it doesn't count for anything,
Yeah, but
Why?
it's going to be a real shame if we go and watch this and it doesn't feel like it's a real fight for the win. If it's just a show, that will be frustrating.
But I think professional athletes, that these people want to win.
Yeah, but they want to win the America's Cup.
Yeah, they do want to win the America's Cup. But if I'm racing, I still want to win. I'm not just going to like sit back and be like, do you know what? Like, just going to let them sail past me. I think ultimately some of them, there'll be some teams are going to take it more seriously than others. I can probably see that. But there can be people out there wanting to win. They're not just want to sit back and.
This brings us into the next point though, because we talked a little bit about what the format of racing they've had in these World Series events previously, but these count effectively for nothing. They don't count for pre-points. So last America's Cup, I can't even remember what the rules were last America's because they didn't happen because it was COVID. So who cares? I think it would have meant something because they would have been racing their first iteration of the AC75. So it would have been interesting from that point of view. But I'll check later, but I'm pretty sure I didn't count for anything. But
They didn't get a bonus point or something.
no, but the Ellison Cups, all of them were like for bonus points. They held World Series in a different type of boat for bonus points. I think Ben Ainsley Racing got one, which they used to great effect to crash out.
To scrape through.
To scrape through into the knockout stage. And the previous one, I can't remember actually what happened in San Fran. They definitely had it because Oracle got.
I just remember them getting deducted points. Yeah.
But there was something about points before, and I can't remember if Oracle won the World Series, but then got a bonus point for that, but then were deducted 2 points, started a point. I can't remember what it was, but there was some sort of carry through. Do you think this event would be better if it counted more? If there was some sort of.
Yeah, I think the winner should get a bye through the first round of the Louis Vuitton series.
You've got to,
Then they'd care.
But you've got to have some. You've got to have a reason for it. Like, yeah, okay, there's the commercial side, but you want to take something and win that event.
This is
and
like
take a point
this is like
through.
sprint racing qualification in Formula One, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah,
It should mean
exactly.
something.
Yeah.
because that's, I mean, the critics will say, and I guess we qualify as critics now, so I'll say it, is it's not in the cup boats, it doesn't count for anything. The only loose kind of affiliation with the racing we're going to see later is it's the same cast of sailors, but otherwise, do they care? Do they care about this?
Deep down, I guess, if you are Jimmy Spittle and Slingsby absolutely smashes you in every race, you might say you don't care, but you probably care a little bit.
Yeah. Well, they are racing, and if they do race and they lose, they're going to care.
If you
And whether
race
that's
and you lose, you just have to
psychological-
say you weren't trying.
Yeah.
You just be like, oh, we were
You
sandbagging.
have to say that, but when the team goes back to the base and debrief, they know they were trying.
When
and
you
they're
do the
looking at
press
each other.
conference, you have to like wipe the tear from your eye. So you say, I wasn't trying.
So that kind of touches on how I view the dynamic here. I don't think anyone cares about winning, but I think some teams will care about losing, because how bad that can be for morale, and whether it's your goal or not. When like things don't quite go your way, you're not on the pace, and you're looking across at your other helmsman, you're like, do I trust you to be my +1 at the America's Cup? So I think that matters.
I think that's probably the most critical bit, is that from a helmsperson perspective,
Those relationships between.
yeah,
Equally, there's a lot of like if you're the starboard helm and you don't get a good start, when you tack at the boundary, you're the guy who's going to get nailed. So the pressure's on you.
Yeah, I know you could say that that's always the case with sailing, but I actually think this is the first kind of showcase of what is your helm capable of. Are they there or thereabouts, or are they nowhere in terms of boat handling? And actually, if you're nowhere in terms of boat handling, that is going to be a real kick in the teeth.
The thing is, we've watched them all boat handle. We know they can all boat handle.
Yeah, but you can boat handle. It's easy to go boat
Yeah,
handling when you've got no pressure.
pressure.
And then trying to do that on a compact race course is actually a completely different thing.
So on this, so we know obviously all the big name teams have got pretty decent squads. The team who could be the real dark horses, the French, because they're a good sailing team. It's the basis of their Sail GP team. They've performed pretty well in that. And they're just going to have no pressure. They'll be like, oh yeah, we're turning up. We only got our boat less than a month ago.
Yeah, I think. I mean, maybe we get on to the team favourites and what would be a win for them at the regatta besides winning, but certainly an element of that. Do you think? I mean, you say there's no pressure on them. Do you think there is pressure from a selection point of view? Do you think? Before we get into which teams which, and this will go into how good the reserve sailors are, because if the reserve sailors are crap, then there isn't much pressure on you. So we'll go through what the squads are. But
They're all signing up crap sailors to bolster their teams. Like, yeah,
by America's Cup
get the crap
standards.
guys. Like,
Yeah, but do you think there is an internal pressure? We're talking about what's at stake here. We said losing would be bad for morale. Just because losing's losing, you're going to be looking at the people next to you and be like, oh, this isn't a great environment. Do you think there could also be pressure from a selection point of view from the racing and the AC40s?
I think it's different for different teams. So Team New Zealand, no pressure for those helms. They're nailed on dead certs to helm the cut boat. Yeah. American Magic, I'd say they're pretty much dead certs to helm the boat. Luna Rosa's an interesting one, because Luna Rosa have got this real dynamic of two very experienced guys, but with a whole host of like young, very talented people snapping their heels. So I don't think they've made their mind up. Like, do you put one youngster in? And like when we're saying youngsters, we're saying youngsters who've like won the NACA Worlds multiple times, or
yeah. I mean, we're dancing around the subject now, so let's just dive into it, because let's start with Luna Rosa.
A breakaway there and pick up next week with our predictions for the team's performance in Vilanova. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank channel sponsors Craft Inshore, Allen Brothers, and you may have noticed new channel sponsor B&G. Links to all their websites are down in the description, along with a discount code for Allen Hardware. Take care and catch you next week.